Welcome to the 9th chapter of the book of Judges. I changed it. Avi Melech rules over Israel. As we go through the story, you'll wonder, well, why would this be a person that would be a judge as the other ones that were righteous towards God, which he wasn't? And there's no place it does title him as a judge. It says that he rules over Israel. Well, later we'll get to it for 3 years. So I changed the title here to he rules over Israel. Avi Melek, that's his Greek name. Avi Melek, I call him Avi Melek. Abimelech was a son of Gideon, but he was a son of a woman that was a concubine of Gideon. It wasn't like a real wife. That was in Shechem when they took Shechem, Gideon, and Gideon had 70 other sons from another woman that was not from Shechem. And so with that background, we go in and it says, and Avi Melech, the son of Erovaal, went into Shechem to the brothers of his mother, so his uncles, basically. And so his mother was from Shechem, mitros, maternal. And he spoke to them and to all the kin of the house of his mother's father, his uncles, saying, speak indeed into the ears of all the men of Shechem, saying, go and tell them, which is best to you, for 70 men to rule over you, which would have been the other men from another woman, another area, another part of the tribe. All the sons of Erovaal or Gideon are for one man to dominate you. And you should remember that I am of your bone and of your flesh. So he is the one that would be dominating for them. And Ostun, we have osteoporosis and osteos, bone, sarx, a sarcophagus for the dead flesh. And the brothers of his mother, his uncle, spoke concerning him in the ears of all the men of Shechem, saying these words. Now Shechem, as we mentioned, is right here. Shechem, fairly close to Jordan. And their heart leaned after Avi Melech, for they said, well, he's our brother. He's of us. And they gave to him 70 pieces of silver from out of the house of Baal-Verith, which I believe was an idol. And Avi Melech hired for them, that money, vain and distraught men. These were like a bunch of rough characters that were not upright, and they went behind him. So you can see all these men. I'm not sure if I don't think it says how many. He hired them all, a large group of these marauders, more or less. And he entered to the house, that is, he being Avi Melech, of his father in Ephrathah. Ophrah, in the Greek it's Ephrathah. And Ephrathah is an important place in the Bible. It mentions it first in genealogy of 1 Chronicles 4:4 of the genealogy of men of Judah, tribe of Judah. And it says, these are the sons of Hur, firstborn of Ephratah, the father of Bethlehem. And then in Genesis 35:19, we're told that says, and Rachel died and was entombed in the way of Ephrathah. This is Bethlehem. And a little later, 48:7 of Genesis, it's mentioning, Abraham's mentioning, but when I came from out of Mesopotamia of Syria, Rachel, your mother died in the land of Canaan at my approaching down by the course of the horses of Habrathah. Rachel. It was Isaac, not Abraham, Isaac. And he, by the course of the horses of Habratha, of the land before coming into Ephrath. Now, the last chapter had mentioned, instead of Ephrathah, it had Ephra. And sort of like with cities, you can shorten them. Apparently that's what they did here. There's one city in Brazil when I went down there, Belo Horizonte, and everybody just called it Bella, and they knew what it was. And so he says that, but when I came from out of Mesopotamia of Syria, Rachel, your mother, died in the land of Canaan at my approaching down by the course of the horses of Habratha, of the land before coming into Ephrath, and I buried her in the way of the courses of the horses. This is Bethlehem. And then in Ruth 4:11 it says, and all the people at the gate said, we are witnesses, when Ruth was being married, and at the gate. And then so they were witnessing, and the elders said, may the Lord give your wife, the one entering into your house, to be as Rachel and as Leah, the ones who both built the house of Israel and did powerfully in Ephrathah, and it will be a name in Bethlehem. Then Ruth, Boaz, Bethlehem. Apparently, this is where David came from, that area. And then in Micah 5:2 it says, and you, Bethlehem, of the house of Ephrathah, are very few, being among thousands of Judah. From out of you to me shall come forth the one being for ruler of Israel. And his exitings were from the beginning, from the eon of days, from the beginning, the archis. In the beginning God made the heaven and the earth, the archis. It's the third word in the third word in the Bible. And then in Matthew 2:4-6 it says, and Herod is talking about, he inquired of them, of the priests, where the Christ is born. And they said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written by the prophet. And you, he's quoting Micah, and you, Bethlehem, land of Judea, are not at all least in the governors of Judah. For from out of you shall come forth one leading, who shall tend my people Israel. Matthew 2:4-6. And killed his brothers, the sons of Eruvaal, 70 men upon one stone. Pretty gruesome. A lot of these things that the people did back in those days with warfare was gruesome. Later with King Saul killed the priests of the Jehovah. I think it was I'm not sure it was in Bethel, but he killed many priests. And throughout history, we see all sorts of carnage by large groups of people killing others, and to the point of, like in one of them in fairly modern days were the Armenians in Armenia next to Turkey, who were killed. Many of them were killed by the Ottoman Turks. And so there's all these different ethnic group fightings and religious fightings that's been going on forever. And here it was here where Avi Melech takes these men, and apparently they captured the 70 men and took them one by one and slew them on this stone, cut their heads off. It doesn't say how they died. But Eotham, son of Aruvaal, the younger, was left behind, for he was hidden. And came together all the men of Shechem, and all the house of Malo, and they went and gave rain to Avi Melech as king at the acorn tree of the station in Shechem. So now here is actually like the first king of Israel would have been Avi Melech, not Saul, but he was just a king of a small area. And they announced to Eotham, somebody, and he told them what happened to the brothers, and he went and stood on top of Mount Gerizim, and that is fairly close here to, we see Shechem, and there's Ebal and Gerizim, where they had the curses and the blessings. And he lifted up his voice and called and said to them, "Hear me, O men of Shechem, and God shall hear you." So hear me, and God's going to be listening also. This is what it's all about. Imperative. In going, the trees went forth to anoint for themselves a king. This is a parable. And they, the trees, said to the olive tree, "You reign over us." Vasilev son, a verb, basil, basilica, derivatives. And the olive tree said to them, "Well, allowing my fatness, which God glorified in me, yes, and men, shall I go to rule over the trees?" No. Didn't say no, but... And the trees then said to the fig tree, "Come, you reign over us." Imperative. And the fig tree said to them, "Well, allowing my sweetness, the glukitita, glycose comes from that, from sugar, glucose. You can add that to the English derivatives book. Allowing my sweetness and my good produce, should I go to rule the trees? I'm doing okay the way I am." And the trees said to the grapevines, getting smaller, "Come, you reign over us." And the grapevine said to them, "Well, allowing my wine, the gladness of God," which is interesting, the wine and gladness of God, "and of the ones of men, should I go to rule over the trees?" And all the trees said then to the white thorn shrub, just a weed, "Come, you reign over us." And the white thorn shrub said to the trees, "Well, if in truth you anoint me yourselves to reign over you, come rely on my protection," which isn't much, it's a bush. "And if not, may fire come forth from out of the white thorn shrub, and may it devour the cedars of Lebanon." May it do a lot of damage, basically. I don't think it's literally talking about the cedars of Lebanon. This is a parable. "And now, if in truth and in soundness you made," now this man is now stop the parable, and he's saying, "And now Gideon's youngest son, and now if in truth and in soundness you made even Avi Melech reign, and if you did well with Jerubbaal, with Gideon, and with his house, and if according to the recompense of his hand you did to him, as my father waged war for you and tossed his life right opposite and rescued you from out of the hand of Midian, and you rose up against the house of my father today, and you killed his sons, 70 men upon one stone, and gave rain to Avi Melech, the son of his maidservant, over the men of Shechem, for he is your brother. And if you acted in truth and perfection with Jerubbaal, as Gideon and his house, in this day, may you be glad in Avi Melech, and may he be glad also indeed himself in you. But if not, may fire come forth from out of Avi Melech, and devour the men of Shechem, and the house of Malo, and may fire come forth from the men of Shechem, and from out of the house of Millo, and devour Avi Melech." And Joatham, the youngest son of Gideon, ran away and fled, and he went unto Virah, and he dwelt there away from the face of Avi Melech, his brother. And Avi Melech ruled over Israel 3 years. See, it says here, he ruled over Israel, not judged. All the other ones it says judged. And God sent a bad spirit between Avi Melech and between the men of Shechem. So it went sour. Their people wanted Shechem, they wanted Avi Melech over them, but something happened and turned them bad. And the men of Shechem annulled allegiance with the house of Avi Melech. So get away. So as to bring the injustice done to the 70 sons of Jerubbaal. That means it's going to happen. taking care of this injustice, and for their blood to be put upon Avi Melech, their brother, the one killing them, and upon the men of Shechem, of the one strengthening their hands so as to kill his brothers. So something's going to happen. And the men of Shechem put for him ones lying in wait upon the top of the mountains. And they kidnapped all the ones going along by them in the way. And it was reported to Avi Melech. And they're taking the power on themselves, more or less. And Gaal, son of Aved, came, and his brothers, these men, strong men, and they went into Shechem. And the men of Shechem relied in him, whoever this man was, is Gaal. And they went forth into the field and gathered the vintage of their vineyards and treaded wine and made a dance and entered into the house of their God and ate and drank and cursed Avi Melech. Baal-berith was the place, the god of this area of Shechem. And Gaal, son of Ebed, said, "Oh, who's Avi Melech, and who is the son of Shechem that we shall serve to him? Is he not the son of Irovaal and Zebul, his overseer?" Zebul is the mayor or ruler of Shechem. So he's putting him down. Is not Zebul the overseer, his bondman with the men of Amor, father of Shechem? And why is it that we shall serve to him, to Avi Melech, ourselves? And if any should give this people into my hand, then I shall remove Avi Melech. And I shall say to Avi Melech, well, multiply your force and come forth. And Zebul, now it's interesting, I was thinking of Baal-zebul, the god, ruler of the Baal. I don't know if this could be tied in or not. It was interesting when I saw the Zebul. And Zebul, the ruler of the city, heard the words of Gaal, son of Ebed, and was enraged in anger. And he sent messengers to Avi Melech with bribes. So now he's going to go find Avi Melech and try to bring him back, saying, "Behold, Gaal, the son of Ebed, and his brothers have come into Shechem. And no, they assault the city against you. And now rise up at night, you and the people with you, and lie in wait in the field." So all the ones with you go hide up there in the field, and it will be in the morning, together with the rising of the sun, Elion, we have helium comes from that, the sun, that you shall rise early and stretch out against the city. And behold, when he and the people with him go forth against you, that is, Gaal goes forth against Avi Melech, that you shall do to him just as your hand should find opportunity. And Avi Melech rose up, and all the people with him at night. They did it as this Zebul said, the ruler of Shechem, and they laid in wait upon Shechem, or at Shechem, 4 companies. And Gaal, the son of Ebed, came forth, and he stood at the door of the gate of the city. And Avi Melech rose up, and all the people with him, from out of the ambush at the top of this hill. And Gaal, son of Ebed, saw the people, and they're all coming down, and he said to Zebul, "Well, behold, the people coming from the tops of the mountains." And Zebul said to him, "The shadow of the mountains you see as men." Like, you're nuts. And Gaal proceeded still to speak and said, "Behold, the people's coming down as a sea, from a part next to the navel of the earth." Now, exactly what that means, I'm not sure. "And one company arrives from the way of the Oak of the Seers," some places close by. And Zebul, the ruler of Shechem, said to him, "Now where is your mouth, O the one saying, who is Avi Melech, that we should serve to him? Is this not the people whom you treated with contempt? Go forth indeed now and wage war with him." And Gaal went forth from the presence of the men of Shechem, and made war against Avi Melech. And Avi Melech pursued him, and he, Gaal, fled from his face. And there fell slain many unto the doors of the city of Shechem. And Avi Melech settled in Arimah, and Zebul cast out Gaal and his brothers, so as to not live in Shechem. So now Zebul has cast these Gaal out and these other people that didn't like Avi Melech. And it came to pass in the next day, came forth the people into the plain and reported to Avi Melech. And he, Avi Melech, took the people and divided them into 3 companies and laid in wait in the field and watched. And behold, some people came forth from out of the city, and he rose up against them and struck them. Avi Melech did. And Avi Melech and the companies with him stretched out and stood by the door of the gate of the city. And the other 2 companies poured out upon all the ones in the field, and he struck them. And Avi Melech made war against the city that entire day. And they overtook the city of Shechem, and the people in it they killed. And he demolished the city, and sowed it with salt, so that nothing could grow in that city, knocked it all down. And all the men of the tower of Shechem heard, it's a stronghold in the city somewhere on a hill, and they entered into the fortress of the house of Bethel Berith. And it was announced to Avi Melech that all the men of the tower of Shechem were brought together. So when Avi Melech ascended into Mount Salmon, which is there somewhere, he and all the people with him. And Avi Melech took an axe in his hand and cut a load of wood, xylon, xylophone, a wooden instrument, and took it and put it upon his shoulders. And he said to the people with him, "What you see me doing, quickly you do, as also I." And they felled wood, and indeed to them all each was a load. And they lifted and went after Avi Melech, and placed the wood at the fortress, and set fire to them at the fortress with fire. And this is red because I'm going to italicize it. And all died, the men of the tower of Shechem, about 1,000 men and women. And Avi Melech went into Thebez, and besieged it, and first took it. And there was a strong tower in the midst of that city, and fled there all the men and the women, and all the leaders of the city. And they shut up themselves, and ascended upon the roof of the tower. And Avi Melech came unto the tower, and they subdued it by war. And Avi Melech approached unto the door of the tower to burn it with fire. And a woman tossed one piece of a millstone upon the head of Avi Melech, and it fractured his cranion. It's a derivative. And cranium is the skull. And he yelled out quickly to his servant, lifting his weapons, and he said to him, "Unsheath my broadsword and kill me, lest at any time they should say that a woman killed him." And his servant stabbed him, and he died. So doesn't want to be known as a woman killing him. The manliness of this person took over. And each man saw that Avi Melech died, and each man departed to his place. So all these people quit following him. It's all over. And God returned the evil of Avi Melech, which he did to his father Gideon by killing his 70 brothers. And all the evil of the men of Shechem God returned on their own head, and came upon them the curse of Joatham, the son of Erovaal, the one about the different trees, and not wanting to rule, but the shrub did, and then burnt him and everything that he said. So it all came to pass, and God took care of Avi Melech. The next video is chapter 10. These are called Judges, and we'll find out about these men in chapter 10 in the next video seminar. I hope you'll join us. Till then, God bless.